world, and welcome to Breaking the Boxes for Week 8 of the NFL season, a 4-1 week for the collective in Circus Sports Million. Glad to have you with us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Listeners, please subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, rate and review. But I do suggest you watch this on YouTube as I go through all the boxes. I mark them up, and let's get right into it. Joe Burrow is back. Bengals 31, Niners 17. The Bengals cover. This got to 4.5 at the close. Opened as high as 5.5. Went down with the Purdy concussion news, but then he came off of the protocol officially on Saturday and was under center for the Niners in this game. This goes over the total of 44. And it's not hyperbole that Burrow is back. 0.33 EPA per dropback. What's really interesting about this game though, it's the second straight game, 1.7 net yards per play in favor of the Niners, where Purdy looks good, but the mistakes are what kills them. 3 turnovers to 1 in this game. The 2 plays up top here are a Purdy interception and a Purdy fumble. Sorry, working with a new mouse here. This is a Purdy interception and then the fumble by Irv Smith. And then the third most impactful play was the other Purdy interception. Sack fumble was the 4th most impactful play. So 3 of the top 4 are Purdy turnovers. Even though the Niners do get a bunch of chunk plays, do outgain the Bengals on a down-to-down basis, those turnovers are absolutely killer. And not only were the Bengals crisp between the 20s, but great in the red zone. 4 of 5. They made the best of all of their opportunities. And I got to give some credit to Mo, because Mo was raising some red flags about this Niners defense. He said with a new coordinator, they're starting to look a bit flimsy. I wanted to lean into the metrics a little bit, give them a little bit of reprieve, but this is a second consecutive game where they gave up a ton of yards and points. And this one in a spot where I understand Burrow's coming back, but you're at home. I mean, they kind of got dog walked by the Cincy offense here. I know T. Higgins is a tough assignment. I know Jamar Chase is a tough assignment, but you really just got to do better here. And the Bengals also do a good job not getting into third downs, right? They're getting 29 first downs, but only 8 third downs, which means they're converting on first and second, which is where you want to live. That's what the Niners do all year, right? We see them get 20 plus first downs without getting into third down situations that frequently. That's what really good offenses do. So very happy to see Burrow bounce back. I am concerned about the Niners defense. I've always been concerned about Brock Purdy. I think he is definitely more of a product of his surroundings. So if this Trent Williams injury lingers, that's more worrisome to me than Debo. I think Debo's a nice chess piece to have, but they have enough talent outside of Debo to move the ball and score some points. But you got to keep Brock clean, or else Brock might make some mistakes like he did in this game. Bengals, I'm very bullish on, and until the market catches up to where they should be, I mean, we could throw out. I know I joked about Burrow being a bum, but the calf injury was a real thing, and the Bengals weren't the Bengals until now, and we need to start rating them properly. Broncos 24, Chiefs 9. The Broncos win and cover as touchdown dogs at home. This steamed all the way down to a flat 7. Doesn't matter. The Broncos get the win. This goes under 45.5. Rumors that Patrick Mahomes had the flu, and it sure as hell looks like it with this negative 0.27 EPA per dropback. They did outgain the Broncos 1.1 yards per play, but 5 turnovers in this game to 1 from Denver. We've got Mahomes pass here to MVS, fumble. We got Mahomes sack fumble. We have Mahomes deep arm punt. There was another fumble. This is the muff by Mecole Hardman. Welcome back to the Chiefs, my guy. And there was one more interception. Yeah, intended for MVS down here. I don't care how good you are. The Chiefs are excellent, but when you turn the ball over 5 times on the road and you go 0 of 3 in the red zone, it's surprising that the Broncos didn't win by more than 15 points. That probably goes more to how poor Denver is. They have a negative EPA per play on this game, 0.04, negative passing, 0.08. So it's not like the Broncos were great. It's just the Chiefs played the absolute game from hell. Miserable, cold conditions. As you can tell, I have a cold as well. I know how you feel, Patrick Mahomes. Just a terrible game. And I'm happy we had this spot. I'm happy we had Denver at home. They break the curse. 16 straight out the window. But this is one of those burn the tape, bury the ball, move on the next week for Kansas City. Because how many times is Patrick Mahomes going to play this bad? This is literally the worst performance of his career. I think I can say that without digging too deeply into it. I don't know if ever he was this low, negative 0.27 EPA per play. So I'm not going to get too down on the Chiefs. I'm certainly not going to get too excited about the Broncos. 35% success rate on passing plays. It's who Russell Wilson is. He's got some big plays in him. Cortland Sutton makes some big plays in this game. But on a down-to-down basis, this Denver offense cannot be trusted. Chiefs, bounce back spot. Definitely not going to be easy next week. They travel all the way to Germany to take on the greatest football team, the Miami Dolphins. An interesting game. Early one next week in Germany. Seahawks 24, Browns 20. The too sharp for own good play of the week does not come in for Burt Minotti and a few others. This goes over the total of 38.5. The Hawks steamed up to 4. So this is one of those where you got to get the best of the number. If you were late to bet the Hawks, you didn't get the win in this game. And there's going to be some pushback because there was late drama. The late Jackson Smith and Jigba touchdown, which gave the Seahawks the win in this game. But it's not like they really should have been in a situation where they were trailing. They were 1.5 yards per play better than the Browns in this game. The Browns turned the ball over that one extra time, which was the one that led to that touchdown. It was a bit of an arm punt, though, right? On 3rd and 3. Where is it? Somewhere in here. 3rd and 2. No, where is the Jamal Adams interception? There it is right here. 3rd and 3. And it's a spot where, do you run the ball? Do you kill more time? I don't know if the Hawks had a timeout or you kill a timeout. Or do you run a play, try to get it up to your best receiver, in which they did. The ball bounces off Jamal Adams' helmet and is caught by him. So I don't know. You'd have to dig into the numbers to see whether or not running or passing there is more optimal. I kind of like giving your best player a chance to go up and win the game, but also in a game where you're having some success running the ball to the tune of nearly 4 yards per play. 4 yards per carry, I guess just below 0, negative 0.06 EPA per rush. You didn't trust it, but this is the issue with having the bad offense, good defense team, especially on the road. You're just going to be put in these scenarios where you need your bad quarterback, your bad offense to make a play. And how often are they going to be able to do it? Now, I'm not going to walk away with this and say that the Seahawks dominated this game per se, and like without a doubt deserve the win and the cover in this spot, because we saw more of bad Geno. Interception here near midfield. They all had another red zone interception. There it is, intended for DK Metcalf. It's just got to be better from Geno. And I know the Browns have a good defensive front. They can generate a very good pass rush. But this kind of stuff can't happen for Geno Smith, especially when he has so much talent around him. Sometimes you just got to dirt it, take a sack, be happy with the field goal, because the Seahawks are so good on both sides of the ball that they can withstand a lot of negative plays, but they can't withstand the backbreakers. No NFL team can, just like we showed with the Chiefs in that previous game. The The Browns also were able to get 4 first downs off penalties, I did notice that, which was definitely helpful in them getting this late lead. But yeah, just PJ Walker couldn't make a play to get them over the hump there. With the Niners loss, the Seahawks are now, I think I saw as low as plus 250 to win the NFC West. It's a little bit rich now to buy in, I think. But when we were talking about it a few weeks ago, if you got a taste of them, might be interesting. But they're not going to have a lot of chances at sustained success if Geno continues this level of quarterback play. For the Browns, I think there'll be some spots at home where there's some gross November, December football coming up where they might be worth a look, where the bad offense, good defense team can come out with a win or cover maybe as short dogs. But in spots against a good offense like the Hawks, even with Geno making mistakes, it's just really tough to get out of there with a win. Eagles 38, Commanders 31. This flies over the 42.5 point total. The Eagles push as 7-point favorites. That's what the closer was. But again, if you got this before the steam at 6.5, you did have a winner. Another lesson in making sure you get the best of the number. This is an absolutely confounding box score because the Commanders have a plus 0.8 net yards per play advantage. They are a perfect 2 of 2 in the red zone. They win the turnover battle, and yet they lose by a touchdown. And I think they should have lost by more because the Eagles were 3 of 5 in the red zone, and the 2 misses were their 2 turnovers, a fumble at the 1 yard line on the tush push, and then another fumble by Kenny Gainwell on the 5 yard line. So 2 pretty strong scoring opportunities for the Phillies. Oops, RIP Phillies. For the Eagles, bungled. And yet they still win by a touchdown in this game, mostly because, A.J. Brown was an absolute beast in this contest. 0.72 EPA per dropback for Philadelphia and this offense. And I think if you dug in a little deeper, that number is probably even higher for A.J. Brown. I got to give credit to the Commanders, though. It doesn't look amazing, but nearly 500 yards of offense. We got a lot of good Sam Howell in this game. We did get bad Sam Howell on that interception intended for Terry McLaurin. That was a really, really bad pick. But overall, the second time he's gone toe-to-toe, basically, with Philadelphia, this is what annoys me about Sam Howell. He's so hot and cold that this is a spot where I wanted to jump off him. And I guess ultimately I was right because in the contest it was 6.5. But he played well in this game, and he got the ball to his best players. It's just the Eagles were good enough in the trenches and were able to get into scoring opportunities and even get over their mishaps near the goal line there. Eagles remain a very good team. I'm still very suspicious of Jalen Hurts. And the Commanders, you just got to be in love with the number when you're betting on them because you never know what you're going to get out of Sam Howell. Eagles very interesting this week. They play host to the Dallas Cowboys. Full field goal favorites. I think the dog is worth a look early on in that game. Titans 28, Falcons 23. This goes over, well over the total of 35. The Titans cover as home dogs. I don't think this ever touched the 3. There's a lot of market support for the Titans keeping this at 2.5. Will Levis, welcome to the NFL. 4 touchdowns for the rookie. They outgained the Falcons by 0.4 yards per play. Even in turnovers here, Desmond Ridder has another awful fumble. Here it is right here. Malik Willis had a bad fumble as well. Vrabel, I'm telling you, stop this platoon stuff. Just let Levis go out there and ball. What's really fascinating about this is that Levis was basically Russell Wilson on steroids. You got the 0.13 EPA per dropback. We saw the long touchdowns to Nook, 3 of them in that game, but a 29 success rate. So on a down-to-down basis, he did struggle, but when you've got DeAndre Hopkins streaking downfield uncovered, and you've got DeAndre Hopkins getting away with a little veterans OPI there, a little horse collar on the cornerback, I guess it doesn't matter. And the second quarterback story in this game is Taylor Heinicke comes into the game for Atlanta. Official word from Arthur Smith is that it wasn't a performance-based benching. Ritter was roughed up, and although he did pass concussion protocol, they just wanted to play it safe, I guess. Neither quarterback really excellent in this game, although Heinicke does look a little better. How much of that is rule of backup? I'm not sure. Other teams not prepared for them. Comes in, slings a little bit. Falcons really struggled in high leverage for 15. The Falcons are like the milquetoast version of the bad offense, good defense team, where their defense isn't quite elite and their offense isn't quite as bad as some of these other ones, but it certainly leaves a lot to be desired. And, Mo brought up the Vrabel voodoo. There was a lot of it here. And kudos to him and Brett for being on the absolute right side here as it played out. But I am suspect of Levis. He's got a big test here, short week, on the road at Pittsburgh. I'm going to be interested to see if he can show us again from a splash play perspective, because I don't think the Steelers are going to make it easy on him in that game, regardless of who's at quarterback for Pittsburgh. For Atlanta, I guess we sit and wait and see who's going to play quarterback for them. They get Minnesota in town, who will be without Kirk Cousins. We'll get to that in a bit, who tore his Achilles. So with a very strong defense, they might be a look against the Vikings, quarterbacked by Sean Mannion, ? But it'll be interesting to see who lines up a quarterback for them. And here it is, Vikings 24, Packers 10. This goes under the total of 48.5. The Vikings cover as a pick'em. They cover as a short favorite. They cover as a short dog. This was ping-ponging back and forth between one all week. And, pour one out for Kirk Cousins. 0.47 EPA per dropback, and that does have some plays by something Jay Hall in there, including this sack fumble, which was the only turnover of the game for the Vikings. Vikings 0.6 net yards per play. I'm sure this was even higher when Cousins was in there. When the Packers are on the field on offense, 5 of 14 on high leverage. 4.4 yards per pass, negative 1.18 EPA per dropback. The Packers just kind of exist on offense. There's nothing going on when they're out there that is intriguing, which is so sad because I'm very high on Christian Watson, even though I nearly forgot his name last week. I'm very high on Reed. I think Dobbs is a serviceable player, but Jordan Love, it's just not clicking for him. Another big pick in this game, the most impactful play of the game, is their sole turnover. The Packers just flat out stink at football, which might be a blessing for them. Maybe they get to rip the Band-Aid off immediately and try to get one of these quarterbacks that's coming out next year. They're stacking up losses, so they're going to find themselves a little higher in the draft than they probably anticipated. I can't even get excited about this defense that has shown to be a bit of a paper tiger in games against the Raiders. They didn't look amazing. So I don't know what to look for in this Packers team and when to back them. They do have an interesting spot this week playing host to the Rams, but only because the Rams might be without Matthew Stafford, who injured his hand against the Cowboys. But I don't know what kind of numbers you really need to back this Packers team. And because of their general sentiment in the market, like for some reason, people almost want to will this Jordan Love thing into existence. I don't know if it's an anti-Rodgers thing, that Rodgers became so unlikable at the end that they want his predecessor to be that much better so the transition isn't that bad. But for some reason, the Packers aren't being treated like the bottom 10 team that they are, when it seems quite obvious that they're bad on both sides of the ball, and it's not going to get any better in Green Bay. For the Vikings, a sneaky season from hell, really. After winning all their one-score games last year, they lose, I think all of them or all but one this year. Now they lose Cousins after losing Jefferson, and there were rumors about Jefferson packing it in. Now, does he want to come back to play quarterback for Mannion? Is it Mannion? Is it Jay Hall? Do they try to trade for somebody? But with half the league playing their backups right now at quarterback, who do you even trade for? I think the Vikings have been handed a spot where it's tough to pull the plug. It's tough to commit to the tank. But this kind of injury at this part of the season might force their hand and might get them to be tank commanders and try to get a quarterback to pair with Jefferson and with Addison, who continues to look great. I shit on the rookie early, but he's been excellent halfway through the season. Tough stuff for Minnesota, but I think they might have backdoored into a better quarterback for 2024. Saints 38, Colts 27. This flies over the closing total of 44. The Saints cover as 2-point favorites on the road. Look at all this green for the Saints offense. Look at Derek Carr getting the ball in the end zone, down the field. Net yards per play, we've got a 2.2 advantage for those New Orleans Saints. Even in terms of turnovers, a 3 of 4 red zone efficiency for the Saints. Derek Carr, stand up. Here's the bomb to Rashid Shaheed that I mentioned, 58 yards. Minshew pick was the second biggest play of the game. The Derek Carr sack fumble was the third most impactful play of the game, but we've got another explosive play here to Michael Thomas. You know, Derek Carr can sling the ball. There's just a part of his brain when they get near the end zone that he shrivels up and is more willing to put the ball into row C than in an area where his teammates can make a play. But for whatever reason between the 20s, this guy can make big plays. He can make chunk plays. So maybe they just need to dial up some big stuff for Shaheed and Thomas and Olave and take deeper shots. It's almost like how the Eagles are very happy to get into third and fourth and short because they know they have the tush push. The Saints should almost operate like the red zone is the most dangerous place on the field for their offense, because then they start to turtle. Like, they need to start taking shots once they reach midfield. Because this was, let's just say it plainly. This was a Derek Carr masterclass against a Colts defense, which had been playing pretty well up until this point, which had been generating some pressure up front with this D-line. And the Saints absolutely shredded them. Gardner Minshew, 38% success rate, a negative. I guess he had 0.01 EPA per dropback. The lowest positive EPA per dropback you can have. We know what this Colts team is. Unless they're catching a bunch of points and Minshew can swagger around and score, they're not going to be worth a look, most likely. And for the Saints, this was a tough spot to back them as favorites on the road. It's not a spot where you really want to line up to back this Derek Carr-led offense. But they have a solid defense, and they have a ton of weapons. They just need to get it to click. Is this going to be something predictive? Is this going to be something that they can carry forward? We'll have to wait and see. But in an NFL bereft of talent at the quarterback position, maybe even bereft of talent on offense, period, by just surviving and staying upright, the New Orleans Saints are slowly creeping up every power ranking across the nation. I'd love to see where Mo and Brett have them after this week. And they've got to be the favorites to win the NFC South now. As I said in the preseason, they were the only big boy in the division. And I guess in a war of attrition right now, where they've been able to fade the big injury at quarterback, they might be the ones in that NFC South. Dolphins 31, Patriots 17. This goes slightly over the closing number of 46.5. The Dolphins cover as touchdown plus favorites. This did steam down in favor of the Patriots. Patriots were as high as 8.5, but money came in on New England, which has been a trend this season. The Dolphins are +1 in net yards per play, although they do lose the turnover battle, including an absolutely horrific Tua interception to Kyle Duggar. Here, we also had a Tua aborted snap, which was recovered in the shadow of their own goalpost. I believe the Patriots were only able to muster a field goal on that drive. Mac Jones welcomes Jalen Ramsey back from his injury by gift wrapping him an interception on a fake screen wheel route, where I guess he just didn't see Ramsey standing right there and threw a lollipop up, and Ramsey was able to snatch it and run the other way. Not the cleanest game from the Dolphins, specifically from those turnovers, but when they absolutely had to have it, they have explosive play to Jalen Waddle. They've got a couple, I guess it didn't show, and there it is, explosive play to Tyreek Hill on the touchdown. They get their chunk plays when they need them. It wasn't perfect, but against a Patriots offense that is anything but explosive, when you can get off a couple of 30-plus yard touchdowns, it's going to be really hard for them to battle back. And now the Dolphins head overseas to take on Kansas City in a neutral field game, when the current narrative is that all the Dolphins do is beat up on tomato cans. And the only one that can change that narrative is them. They are short dogs against the Chiefs. Again, a very fascinating game. The Dolphins are flying today, here on Monday. The Chiefs plan to fly later in the week, I believe Thursday, and we'll only have one practice in Germany. So that's something to monitor. I think the Dolphins might get over the hump in this spot as dogs. The Patriots. The biggest worry for me here is going to be their defense. We talked about it earlier in the season that those Gonzalez and Judon injuries were going to come home to roost later in the season when they started to play teams that could pass the ball, because they were playing teams like the Jets after those injuries. Or I guess they played somebody, not the Jets. They were both healthy for the Jets game, but they played another inept team that was unable to pass, so we weren't too worried. But when you got to get J.C. Jackson off the street, when the Chargers kicked him to the curb, you're going to struggle, especially against elite passing attacks like the Dolphins. So nothing really of surprise here. Good to see the Dolphins take care of business. Again, it just comes down to, can they beat a good team? Another opportunity for them this week. Jags 20, Steelers 10. This goes under the total of 41. The Jags cover as 2.5-point road favorites. This was another one like the Titans game where the market just didn't let it get to 3 points. Some market support for the Steelers, and the market was absolutely wrong, because the Jaguars dominate in this game, plus 1.7 net yards per play. And if they weren't a complete dud, 0-3 in the red zone, they might win this score by an even larger margin. It was turnovers in the red zone, which did the Jaguars in those instances. We had a fumble by Evan Ingram and an absolutely inexcusable interception by Trevor Lawrence, where I don't know if he saw the underneath, but he threw into double coverage and it was intercepted. Just really pitiful stuff. And then this Tank Bigsby fumble was on the precipice of the red zone, 35-yard line. So Jags absolutely dominate in this game. This is one of those games where I'm starting to feel more comfortable in them as one of those top-tier teams in the AFC. Going to Pittsburgh isn't easy. It's going to be an ugly affair. Their defensive line is great. The weather was horrific. So winning by 10 points in a game where you were 0-3 in the red zone, there's absolutely nothing to complain about in that contest. For the Steelers, Kenny Pickett hurt again. Trubisky comes in. They say, it seems at time of recording, they're pessimistic, I should rephrase, that he'll be able to go on Thursday at home against the Titans on Thursday Night Football. So we'll have to monitor that. But, you know, the Steelers are a pretty simple cap, because we are comfortable in their defense, specifically their defensive line, but we are very, very weary of their offense. So they're going to have to be in spots where the opposing team is just as anemic on offense, and they might have the opportunity this week against Will Levis in his first road start. Ravens 31, Cardinals 24. Certainly the bad beat of the weekend. If you had the Ravens in this contest, this goes over 45, because the Cardinals cover as 10-point dogs, 9-point dogs, and 8-point dogs, because at the end of the game, they were able to successfully recover an onside kick and kicked a field goal on a second down instead of trying to throw the ball in the end zone. I haven't seen the numbers on that, so I don't know whether or not that was the correct or incorrect analytical decision. I do like how on the second onside kick, they kicked it right back at Aguilar, who was the one who failed on the first onside kick, but he was able to capture that one and end the game. Even in terms of yards per play, Ravens have a 0.1 advantage in this game. Even in terms of yards per pass, the Cardinals have a 0.1 advantage in that game. Both teams perfect in the red zone. 4 of 4 for the Ravens, 3 of 3 for the Cardinals. Defense sold separately, as our guy Mo would say. Both teams super sloppy with penalties as well. 115 yards of penalties in this game. 7 first downs off penalties. Ravens get 4. Cardinals get 3. Just a slop fest in the desert. And we do say chaos favors the dog, but with Josh Dobbs playing this poorly, negative 0.12 EPA per dropback, losing the turnover battle 2-0. I mean, this interception to McBride was as bad as it gets in the shadow of your own goalpost. If you had a Ravens ticket, you got absolutely worked here. A brutal, brutal loss. If you got a Cardinals ticket like Mo, you should maybe wait a week to complain for your next beat, although we know that's not going to happen with our guy, the Moose. The Ravens were not pretty in this game. They had a negative 0.04 EPA per dropback, but in what Mo did deem the sleepiest spot of the year, they should have came out with a double-digit win, a 2-touchdown win. Not perfect, but very reasonable when you're playing one of the worst teams in the league to go on the road and have this type of performance. I think the Ravens are starting to round into form, which is terrifying for the rest of the AFC and makes this AFC North fascinating because the Bengals are back at full strength, and now we have this Baltimore team that looks a lot like the Baltimore team that we anticipated. So I'm excited from a football standpoint in a league where, like I said earlier, we're losing all these quarterbacks. We're seeing such bad play that both Baltimore and Cincinnati are getting right. It sucks that they had their first game out of the way early with no Burrow or hurt Burrow, because I would like to see these two teams play against each other twice at full strength. But AFC North battle is heating up and starting to get interesting. I'll tell you what wasn't interesting. Cowboys 43, Rams 20. Cowboys nearly go over the 44.5 total on their own, and they do cover. This gets all the way up to 7, steams up to a full touchdown, and they cover that regardless. I don't know what to take away from this game other than the Cowboys. You know what? I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't be lazy in my analysis because the Cowboys offense was very good in this game. 0.35 EPA per dropback. This was the stuff that we've been asking for from this team. They fed the ball to CeeDee Lamb, 1.3 net yards per play in favor of Dallas. The touchdown to Ferguson, they were struggling in the red zone, still not perfect, 2 of 4. But that seamer to Ferguson, great concept, great throw by Dak. The stuff that we want to see from this Cowboys offense, they started to show it in this game. Granted, against a Rams defense, which is extremely suspect outside of Aaron Donald. But again, these are the things that we want to see. We want to see good teams take advantage of bad teams. And that's what Dallas did. 58% success rate throwing the ball. Good job by Dak. Good job by McCarthy. For the Rams, we see Stafford under duress. We see Stafford throw a pick 6, most impactful play of the game. We see Stafford get hurt, doesn't play in the second half. It's Britt Rippon for the Rams Is this going to be a Desmond Ridder situation where they're just taking it easy and they're going to bring Stafford back next week? Or is this going to be something more long-term for a older quarterback? We'll have to wait and see. Road game against Green Bay. Uninspiring for both teams, but the Rams open up as road favorites. Seems a bit rich for a team whose quarterback could be Brett Rippon. And for those Cowboys, is this an indication of what's to come? Is the Cowboys offense going to round into form like we thought it should with all these great weapons? I don't know if a full 3 on the road against Philadelphia is justified, if this is predictive of what's to come. If that's the case, the Cowboys are a money bet line look this week, especially at that number. We got some ugly ones to close it out. Panthers 15, Texans 13. We got a cover in the contest here. This goes way under the 43 total. This was win one for the Gipper AF. Panthers cover. This steamed to 3.5. They covered the 3.5. They obviously covered the 3. They won outright. It wasn't pretty for either team, both negative in EPA per play. So it's going to come down to who bleeps up. And the Texans bleeped up. CJ Stroud bleeped up. Threw the interception in the shadow of his own goalposts. Again, the Panthers can't really take full advantage of it. They settle for a field goal, but in a game where the margin of victory is 2, there's your field goal. There's the victory. You look at the scenes after the game. I mean, they might as well have had champagne in the locker room for the celebrations for Bryce Young. This meant so much for them. They were killing their guy all fall. 2 months straight of you should have drafted CJ Stroud. This was as circled as it could get. But let's pump the brakes. Now that this victory is over, we can go back to treating the Panthers like one of the worst teams in the league. 1 of 4 in the red zone. I think that's predictive. 3.7 yards per play. I think that's predictive. Again, awful EPA per dropback. Awful success rate. And the Texans will bounce back. They're a team that we're going to be interested in a lot of spots because they have a good young quarterback. They have a good coach. They have a good defense. I think the Bobby Woods injury was sneaky interesting here because although Tank Dell was back, Houston is a team that struggles to run the ball, and they run a ton of 11. So they're going to want to have all 3 receivers on the field at the same time. So I think that injury was sneaky hurtful for them. But the Texans we like the Texans, but it was a tough spot to be full field goal favorites on the road, especially with all the narrative in the favor of Carolina. But again, now we get to sell Carolina. Now we get to be done with this team who honestly might not win another game this year. That's a distinct possibility. Chargers 30, Bears 13. It's the game you saw last night. This goes under 46. The Chargers cover any number you got, any alternate that you got, although they made it squeaky at the end with a fumble from Austin Eckler. But it does not matter because Tyson Bagent most likely does not meet the threshold to play quarterback in this league. Negative 0.25 EPA per dropback, plus 0.7 EPA, net yards per play for a Chargers team that got a little sleepy there in the second half. Game was basically in hand, so they did a lot of turning and handing, 2.2 yards per carry. Couldn't get much going against the Bears front, and at the same time, though, even though they were salting the game away, I mean, Justin Herbert's taking hits. What's going on here? The guy's got a messed up finger on his non-throwing hand. Like, maybe we should think about benching the guy instead of putting him out in harm's way. 0.32 EPA per dropback for Justin Herbert. Something Quentin Johnston was alive and actually making plays in this game. This was something Bagent on the road in prime time. They had that cute little play action go to start the game, but when it came to nut cutting time and sustaining drives, this was a dream spot to take LA. Very glad we had them on the card. Bears are going to be entirely about the number and entirely about the quarterback situation, whether or not Justin Fields comes back. I will say that the first game Justin Fields comes back, it's probably going to be a game where the Bears get over adjusted because we know how important Fields' athleticism is to his performance. So you don't necessarily want an injured Fields out there playing football. And what's also interesting is that a Bears team that has their own first pick and the Panthers' first pick, how much are they invested in Justin Fields? If he gives them too much of a chance to win, they probably don't want to play him. But they also don't have any reason to protect him because he's probably not a long-term asset in their plans. They'll probably flip him for some sort of day 2 pick next year. So Bears are interesting to monitor. I don't know what scenarios they'd have to be in order for us to be on them, because I don't know how many times we're going to have situations like in week 7 where the Raiders were inexplicably road favorites against them. So the Bears are probably a stay away, if not an altogether fade in some spots like this one. And the Chargers, nice to beat up on a tomato can, but it's a Division II quarterback. Next week is the big test. On the road, prime time against my fighting New York Jets, who have gotten 7 first downs the last 3 weeks. The Chargers opened as short favorites. It's already steamed up to 2.5. It should probably close at a field goal or more. If the Chargers are a serious football team, they should curb stomp the Jets. They absolutely should. The Jets' offense is as bad as it gets. But are the Chargers a serious team, or are they going to charge her? Or are the New York Jets just a team of destiny? Jets 13, Giants 10. An unbelievable game. I can't believe I watched every snap of this game. I can't believe the Jets won. They push as 3-point favorites. What the hell was this game? Look, 2.8 yards per play. The Jets had a plus 1.2 net yards per play advantage and had 4 yards per play. I mean, this is it right here. This is the stat of the year. -9 team passing yards. Believe it or not, it's happened a bunch in the NFL. Negative team passing yards because sacks count against you. This was probably one of the few ones. There's been some victories for the team with negative passing yards. It's actually happened before. But this is one of the few ones where the team that holds the opposing team to negative passing yards doesn't blow their doors off. In fact, I looked at games in the illegal contact era. So we're removing all the games in the 50s and 60s where who knows what the hell Norm Van Brocklin and these other guys were doing in pro football. But in the passing game era, post illegal contact, there's been 2 instances of this happening. And the teams that held the opposing team to negative passing yards won by a combined 88-3, which shows you how poor this offensive effort and just overall effort for the Jets was not to win this game by infinity. And the reason really is the 2 Zach Wilson fumbles. One was a very soft fumble on a sack from Kayvon Thibodeau. You just have to keep the ball closer to your body, Zach. And this other one was an aborted snap by the Jets' third-string center, who technically is the 4th string if you include Joe Tippmann, who was inactive for this game and has been injured for a few weeks. But I gotta say, I think the fellow's name is Shepard. On the most important play of the game, the spike before the tying field goal in regulation, my guy get it right. He's a guard from Baylor. He was a practice squad guy. He was called up on Saturday. He was thrown in to play center. And he rumbled downfield, made sure he didn't false start, and got the snap off in time for Zach Wilson to spike it, Greg Zuerlein to kick it, and the Jets to get it into overtime. Once it got into overtime, the Jets should have been like minus 1,000. Well, maybe ties, but the Giants didn't throw the ball with something DeVito. So what were they going to do? And of course, they get more negative yards on their sole possession in overtime. The Jets get the ball and kick a game-winning field goal. But like I said, the Jets 7 first downs the last 3 weeks. This is not sustainable. They are a house of cards. They should be 1-6. The Eagles game should have been a loss. This game should have been a loss. And probably week 1 against the Bills should have been a loss. But here we are, 4-3. Somehow, some way. miracles in the Meadowlands. Multiple. 3. For the Giants. I mean, what in the world? It's not going to be DeVito. Sounds like Dimes is back this week in a game the collective will be in attendance, I think. We're all going to be in Vegas. This is our weekend trip of the year. But what the hell do you do with this Giants team? Defense played well. I'll give them that. Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence were nightmares for, granted, a Jets offense that was missing 6 players, I think. 5 players in total. And Becton's worst game of the year by far. But I don't know what to expect from the Giants. Their offense has been bad, and the quarterback roulette that they keep playing, just like I talked about Fields, I know it's a neck injury with Daniel Jones, but we want him to be out there and athletic and cavalier and willing to take hits. That's part of what makes him an important player in this offense. If he doesn't have that, Daniel Jones as a drop back passer, does it get worse? I mean, he's not Bajent quality, but he's pretty damn bad. So I don't know what number you're going to have to get to be excited about the Giants. And for the Jets, I think this is Chargers or nothing next week. I think the Chargers should curb stomp the Jets, but we'll see if they can pull another rabbit out of the hat. I don't understand it, but they just keep doing it. And that's week 8. Full slate. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for dealing with my cold. We'll see you on Thursday, where hopefully we'll make another 4-1 or 5-0 card in Circa. And until then, peace out.